Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for September 24th, 2024. Happy birthday, Jaime.
Oh, happy birthday, Jaime.
I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're joining us in Zoom for the first time, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by talking about last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called Small Space Usage Plan. The assignment was to evaluate a small space organizing challenge in your home and start planning a solution. We didn't want to try and assign that you solve the whole problem, but at least develop a plan. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who redesigned a small room, a closet, or even just a dresser drawer this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer CM offered a small space storage tip in a comment on this week's video. CM writes, in the smallest of spaces, if a sofa is pulled out a little from the wall, you can hide some storage behind there, such as extra rolls of bath tissue, small boxes of seasonal decor, or stored toys.
Fair point. I agree with you there. It'll just be hard to access it behind there. So consider what you're hiding there and how often you need to get it out. In general, behind the door, behind the furniture, under things, this all gives you some extra storage in a small space, but it will feel densely packed as well. So pay attention to whether the stash behind the sofa makes the space feel more crowded with the sofa a little bit away from the wall. Or if the door with something hanging behind it isn't pushing the door out into the room too much, making it feel like it's an obstacle to get around. So as always, in a small space, it might be better to not have something versus finding somewhere to stash it. but I've seen people put things behind the couch before, and it is an option. I would just say it's an option for long-term storage of things you don't have to get very often.
Right. So holiday decor is a great example.
Coming out
You're
once
gonna
a year.
pull it out one time, put it back one time, and those are the only times you have to move the couch out to get to it. That sounds reasonable.
Right.
Let's get straight to our main topic, because we have had a tendency lately to not even get through everything we prepared, and we have a lot of questions. Such as, how can I help my cluttered friend with her excess stuff? What goes into a capsule wardrobe? What's the best way to display digital photos? Today, we're going to answer these questions and others suggested by our viewers and listeners.
Right off the top, we have one from Andrea who says, my friend has a car trunk full of new things she's never removed for years. How can I help her with these things? So you may not be able to help. So the first question I'm going to ask is she really expressing a desire to have help, or is she expressing regret at keeping the things in your car? If she doesn't think it's a problem, then your desire to help her empty the trunk is kind of a moot point. You don't really need to go there. If she does want help, if she is worried about the stuff that's been in the car, then you can have her show you one thing at a time and discuss whether she's going to use it. Ask how long ago since she bought it. What was she intending to use it for? Does that purpose still exist? Things like that. Just like any other space that's full of stuff to be managed, you can't deal with it all simultaneously. You can only deal with it one at a time. So pulling one thing out and having a conversation about it and making a decision about it, I can donate that now. I can take that in the house now. I don't know what to do with it yet. Is a process that you need to go through each of the things one at a time to get the stuff out of the trunk, but all filtered through, she has to find it a problem first.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
You have to tread a little lightly, because if she may think this is a storage space for some things that I'm going to deal with on my own timeline and agenda.
Mm,
And even though you can see it's all new things she's bought and it's clutter in your perception, if she's not thinking of it that way, you might, jeopardize the relationship if you call attention to a problem that
point
she
that
doesn't
out.
see as a problem,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So we're just saying trade carefully. If she's asked for help, fine. If she hasn't asked for help, then I think you have to let it go. You have to let it be what she wants it to be. If she considers the trunk of her car as a storage unit, just like the shed in the backyard or just like the closet in the house, then you got to go with it. I've always had my BD friends have always been very funny about they put things in the trunk of the car to hide it from their husbands. And they take it in
Mm,
later, and so, it may be she's buying stuff and she doesn't want to get called out by somebody. Like there may be some action going on in her own house that means that she's hiding things in the trunk. The person that she shares her house with is not in her trunk very often. I
right.
doubt that he doesn't know or he or she doesn't know that it's there, but I'm sure that's part. There may be part related to that about why it's still in the trunk. So anyway, we're just saying tread carefully. If it bothers you, I'm sorry that it bothers you, and make sure that before you offer suggestions about emptying the trunk, you find out whether she really wants to or not.
Rowan makes a good point that stuff in the trunk may be damaged due to extreme heat and cold.
True that,
Because if
100%.
your car is not garaged, or even if it is garaged, we were garaged in Houston, but the humidity would still get in there to anything
Yeah, it was
stored in a
still
trunk. It's
the
not a
ambient temperature was still 95 degrees, whether it was in the sun or not. It didn't matter.
yeah,
So the garage is not air conditioned. I'm just saying. So the only thing that being in the garage gets you is not in direct sunlight
right.
to make the temperature higher. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you drive it around long enough in the car, it's going to die from exposure for sure. Fair
Um,
point.
okay, counterpoint from Jane, who says, I keep extra packages of bathroom tissue and facial tissue in my car. Some folks have questioned this. Living in a small space makes this a good solution for me, better than behind the sofa.
100%. And the toilet paper is in a package, so it's going to be by the time you get around to using it, it probably will not have succumbed to deterioration or humidity if it's contained. It just won't last in there forever. But
Well,
great if it's a good solution.
but if this is just where this is if it's an overflow storage space
Mm-hmm.
for a small living space, then presumably you're going to take out an older one and then go replace it with a newer one,
Right, right.
you
It's going
know.
to get in
So
rotation,
it
and
may not
so
be as much of an issue. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And she says, right, these get rotated into the house quickly.
that's good. That's good. Okay, I'm with you. Not
Um,
room for a big old hunk of toilet paper, big old 12 roll of toilet paper or something in your house.
Naomi says some things legitimately belong in the trunk. For example, a stack of handbills and posters for our next concert that have to be distributed around town anyway.
Okay.
And M says keeping kitty litter in the car would make space in the house and be ready if it is the kind that can be used in the winter on ice.
Oh, there you go. Dual purpose, right?
And then
Okay.
Anita makes another good point in favor of
Trunk
intervening.
storage. Oh,
No, intervening
intervening.
in
Oh,
the
okay.
case of the trunk storer. She says,
Okay.
"What if she gets rear-ended? When we lived
Oh,
in a small apartment, the trunk, our extra closet, was stolen and burned."
oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, the trunk of your car, besides not being temperature and humidity controlled, is also somewhat more vulnerable than storage inside your house. So
Right. It's
that's
it's more likely to get stolen than your house would get broken into.
to get
So
burgled, right? How
right.
cars get broken into much more frequently than houses get burgled.
Right, right.
True.
I
Yeah.
love the mental image of the car got stolen and then burned. That's decluttering by hazardous intervention, I
Ooh,
guess.
that's a rough one.
Right? That would not feel good.
Okay, let's move on. An anonymous survey respondent said, not sure if this can be a whole topic, but are there guidelines as to quantity of items a wardrobe should contain? For example, pairs of trousers, warm sweaters, casual/lounge clothing, blouses, tees. What do you think about that?
How many of each wardrobe item you keep is a really individual choice that needs to take into account a lot of factors like what range of activities do you do, how much the weather varies where you live, how much rain, snow, ice, mud you have to deal with, and so on. But if you're interested in downsizing a wardrobe to fit your space or to live a simpler lifestyle, you might look around online for ideas about capsule wardrobes. That's a wardrobe concept. Lots of people have published their own lists. I don't know how, can you put that link that you have, Ed, into the chat? He has a
Yes,
capsule wardrobe list in there that we have a link to. But basically, the idea is that there are, you create a collection of clothes that interchanges with each other and is a limited amount of 25 pieces, including shoes, that all goes together and can be worn most of the time. It may be, depending on your needs, that capsule wardrobe may be more or less than you actually want to have. We have a suggestion from B Case 5328, who says 6 complete outfits per 4 seasons is 24 outfits with mixing and matching, dressing across seasons, and re-wearing lightly worn pieces before the laundry day. This should be enough to get you through. And really, the bottom line I have to say about this is that clothes can be a historical collection or it can be an active use collection. You need a whole lot less to actively wear than the vast collection of clothes that most of us keep just to be collecting them. So, I'm thinking of my own closet. There's no way that my closet is a capsule wardrobe. And a lot of the stuff that's in there is it's things that I actually wear, but it could still be simplified to a smaller collection. People that are into fashion and find fashion entertaining, rewarding, think it's fun to collect, they collect, like we all collect, more than you can actually use. So what you need to stay dressed and look appropriate in most situations is a much smaller collection than you're collecting clothes just because there's more things out there that you like. So keeping that in mind, a capsule wardrobe is a much smaller population, and there's lots of, just Google that term and you can get to a whole bunch of suggestions, and it will be 2 of these, 3 of these, 4 of these, plus the shoes, maximum 30 pieces or 40 pieces or 20 pieces, depending on how simple and drastic you want to go. So there. That's the guidelines are vary depending on how active you are and where you live. Like in Houston, we don't need a bunch of winter clothes. Like I don't have a bunch of winter clothes because it's not cold much here, and I'm menopausal. So even when it is cold, I don't want to be bundled up because I'm preferring to be chilled than to be hot. So, but there's other parts of the country that actually have 4 seasons, and you have to manage your clothing based on the season that's going by. And so that affects what you're able to choose as your capsule wardrobe. What is the smaller quantity that you want to keep?
there were I saw several references to Project 333. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah.
What's the third 3? It's 33 items. I forget, but the essentially that your wardrobe contains, for 3 months. I think Naomi says,
Thank
yeah,
you.
okay.
Yeah, I saw that go by.
It got me curious. I think I probably do have a capsule wardrobe, but that's completely because of my own minimalism around clothing. I don't, I work from home. I hardly ever meet with clients anywhere other than on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I almost don't even need to own pants, except that
When you walk the dog,
the store, exactly, and at the grocery store, things
yeah,
like
they probably
that.
want you to have pants
You
on at
know,
the grocery store.
I would I think maybe we'll survey on this for a future, to talk about it some more in a future episode, because I'd love to get a range from people and say, how many items of clothing do you own in these categories, and just see what kind of range we get.
Because I bet, most of us never actually go and count. And when you start counting and realizing how many, like I tend to evaluate closets in terms of the linear feet of rod,
Uh-huh.
because when you move in particular, people are always thinking, oh, I just need a few wardrobe boxes. Well, how many linear feet of clothing do you have? That wardrobe box only holds 2.5 linear feet or
Right.
2 linear feet. And so I tend to think of closets in terms of the linear feet, and I don't think about how many hangers are within that 2 that 2 foot range. And so most of us don't go and actually count our items. And I bet it would be super shocking for you to count your items and find out exactly how many thousands of things you own.
Deborah shared that Project 333 is from Courtney Carver and says well worth a read. So I want to make sure to give credit
I have
there.
read it before. I remember that we've looked at it before, but it's been a few years since we did, because I didn't remember the pieces of it, but I recognize Project 333 as the impetus.
Linda says, I don't have a capsule wardrobe, but do wear what I call a half uniform. That half covers from the waist down and is all black. So I choose from dress slacks, jeans, or leggings, all in black, worn with black shoes. Tops range in color, but all coordinate with black. Also, even though I live where there are 4 seasons, I think of it as only 2, warm and cold. I
Right.
find that I can add or subtract a layer to deal with the in-between weather.
There
This has
you
made
go.
everything so much easier on the clothing front.
And you have that much less to store in your closet, which is awesome. Good for you. It sounds like you got it worked out.
Deborah says, I have lots of coats and socks.
Well, you live in a cold weather place.
Yes.
It's true. You live where
Yes.
they actually have snow on the ground and temperatures that no human should walk around in.
A winter wonderland.
Right? So, I totally get it. Yeah, managing clothing in cold weather places where you have big bulky coats takes up a lot. Those things take up a lot of room. My little summer t-shirt and tank tops take up much less space than a serious winter coat to deal with snow. So it's more of a problem.
Another factor that contributes to the smallness of my wardrobe is that I'm kind of a polar bear. And so
It's true.
as you know, I will wear shorts and a t-shirt and maybe a hoodie until the snow or freezing rain is coming down on me.
It's true.
And then
It's
I will
100% true.
then it will change from the hoodie to a heavier jacket.
But still in his shorts. That's the thing. He would
Yes.
walk around in really cold temperatures in his short and tennis shoes. And I'd be like, dude, aren't you freezing? No, he's not. He's not freezing at all.
Never.
It's his Viking blood, right? It's that Vikingness that's still in him, that he can walk around in the cold temperatures and not even notice.
Wow. Deborah says, this weekend I went to a housewarming for a friend who is a vintage fashion influencer. I had heart palpitations looking at her amazing walk-in closet. 8 packs wardrobes.
Wow.
I am a minimalist, as you all know, but oh, I felt lust.
Well, and she's doing it for work also. So she's got a collection, but she has a collection that is part of what she does for a living. So she has a little bit more leeway there because she's collecting for what she's promoting and doing.
Yeah.
Man, but that was fun to look at.
M mentions one wardrobe problem for people who live alone is needing to have enough clothes to make a load of laundry.
Right. And I stopped worrying about it. I will wash smaller loads, like whatever. I'm just going to wash it. I need it. And if it's not a huge load when it goes in, whatever, I just reduce the volume of the water and move on. One of the adaptations you make as somebody that lives by themselves.
Lynn says, while currently downsizing my closet, I counted 85 t-shirts, long and short sleeve.
Whoa, that is a lot. That is a collection, sister. That is a lot of t-shirts.
I think a friend of my sister's here mentioned that when she moved a few years back, she had concert t-shirts. She'd gone, she'd bought a t-shirt every concert she'd ever attended, even small venues, and so she had something like 150 t-shirts.
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
that's a collection, not an active use wear. That was somebody collecting t-shirts, not somebody that's going to wear all those t-shirts for sure.
I think she did wear a lot of them. She probably had, cherished ones that she kept in pristine condition to commemorate the event. But, if you've got 150 of them, you've got to wear some of them, right?
Right.
Right.
Jeez Louise. Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Sounds good. Barbara asked, is that where we are? Yes.
Yes.
What's the easiest way to display hundreds of photos that are currently on digital devices? Making photo books is too time intensive. I agree. I agree. And so our suggestion here, a really simple one, is digital photo frames. We bought one of these for my parents for, I forget,
Some
around their
holiday, right?
I think
Christmas.
60th anniversary. It might have been
Mm.
59th anniversary, somewhere around there. And theirs was a Pixstar. That's PIX hyphen star. And I'll include a link in the show notes. And uh, they were delighted with it, and Dad continues to use it. And it's connected to you. You have to connect it to your Wi-Fi, and it
Mm.
checks in with a website, so you can email the photos to yourself, and you can also give out the email to people whose photos you're willing to receive. So
Oh, that's
there's an
cool.
email address specific to your device, and so you can give it to your children, grandchildren, or whatever, other family members, and they can email photos which will show up on their photo frame.
That's super cool. And the idea of having whatever whatever digital photo frame you use, you can go in and update it all the time. You can change photos a lot. And the idea of having that frame in your view so that you see the photos changing and going by, and you get the constant surprise of, oh, look at that cute photo. I forgot about that photo. It's sort of like photo TV.
Yeah.
And so you can be walking by and see the photos changing and see something you haven't seen in a while, or see something that one of your relatives pushed through, and it'll be like, oh, look at that. That's so great. So I think it has this whole passive watching it change aspect to it that allows it to be more fun. And uploading to a digital frame is just a matter of, copying the photos over. And so it isn't that hard to load it. And this particular model, you can go and update it a lot. And so I think it's a great way it's a low key way to constantly be pulling photos and putting those digital photos someplace that you just see them rolling by all the time. And I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. We also had something on a previous smart TV, not our current one, but our I think this was actually maybe a function of the app of our Apple TV, that we could share the Apple photo library on the TV. And so we would do that for parties, turn the TV on and let it play music and cycle
And show
through
photos.
photos from the photo library.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of digital options nowadays.
Diane says we have an Aura frame. Love it. Our kids add pics to it, especially when they travel.
Oh, isn't that fun that you just get a little random, oh, look, there's them out on their vacation picture pop up. That's cool. I like
Um,
it.
Brenda says, don't think my mom ever plugged hers in. She goes to bed when the sun goes down to save a light bulb.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I guess
the
that wasn't her deal,
the
right?
digital photo frame would probably not be a great gift for the person who constantly turns out the lights in every room he leaves, even if someone's still sitting in there. If you've ever had one of those people in your life.
Right. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Another anonymous survey respondent asked, would you object to followers using the Facebook page to set up periodic challenges with each other, with us checking in to report our progress? Might be helpful motivation and satisfying to connect with others.
I'd be happy for you guys to do that, and support each other on the Facebook page. That'd be great. Let's do it. Go over there and do whatever you feel like in terms of challenging each other. I know that a lot of the Zoom participants are familiar with each other and chat a whole lot during the show. So I know you guys have existing relationships already, and you would recognize each other on the Facebook page if you showed up. So why not? It's not a big deal to go and say, "Hey, I need this challenge," or I need someone to support me while I do this," or can anybody check in with me this afternoon and ask me how I'm doing, on how far I got along on this project. Yeah, knock yourselves out.
And we'll keep one eye on it to make sure it stays civil and and
Appropriate.
and yeah, and keeps to the Clutter Fairy standards of kindness and compassion that
There
we
you go.
like to establish.
That's right.
All you can also we get a few comments on show notes posts on our website, and the comments are enabled on all of those. And so if you ever, want to start a conversation there, you're welcome to do it. I would love to get more traffic of people commenting on stuff on our website. So check it out if you get a chance. C asked, how long is too long to hold items from clearing parents' home intended to find new homes for?
If you're holding them and they're taking up needed space in your home, or they're sitting in storage costing you money, then it's probably time for it to go. Usually I tell people to wait on making the decisions about their parent stuff until a year or so after the loss. But at that point, it's time to start making decisions on what is now going to be yours and get incorporated into your home as the new owner, and what can be released for someone else to own next. I think if you wait too much longer, you will end up with things in storage that you will ignore for a decade, or you will leave those piles in the corner of the room. They will become part of the landscape of the house, and it'll fade into the background and you won't really notice it as much. And then you'll be surrendering too much space to stuff that really doesn't need to be there. And ultimately, what makes people stop dealing with things related to their parents is the idea that it's going to cause pain to look at it or talk about it. And then we avoid having that feeling. We don't want to cry about it. We don't want to be sad while we're touching the stuff. And so we avoid it. But the end result of that is that you surrender important space in your house for things that you're never going to use. And there's no telling what's in those boxes from your parents' house. There's no telling what you brought in your moment of grief when you're clearing the house, what you brought over to deal with later, and later has never come. So there's probably a lot of it that is ready to go and won't be a hard decision for you to make. That I'm not going to use that thing. That's some old paper that we need to shred, whatever. There's probably tons of projects in there that just need to get done and out of your space to give you some of your space back. But ultimately, everything that comes out of a parent's house cannot be absorbed in the homes of the heirs. And I'm working on an estate right now that's a perfect example. It's a 2-story house, 4 bedrooms, very big, full to the gills everywhere. The parents were the last ones standing from all of the relatives before. So there was caches of things from every relative back 3 or 4 generations in the house. We went through and did a huge sorting, got rid of tons of shredding, massive amounts of shredding, lots of trash went out, all kinds of stuff that in prep. And then we had an estate sale, and the estate sale was a old school, they set up shop inside the house. They priced everything, and they spent 3 days with people walking through the house buying stuff. And then the family had already made their claims to furniture and objects, which we arranged for the movers to go deliver to the siblings. And then when the estate sale was over, the family and the extended family came back through the house like 3 different times, taking more things out over and over again. And still there's a massive amount of stuff left over. So if you imagine that you're going to take a couple's whole life and all the contents of their house and somehow absorb it into your space, you're agreeing to double your own contents just to not give up your parents' stuff. And so it's going to create a big problem for you. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be way too much stuff to manage. And so wait until you can make decisions. If it takes a year and a half, 2 years, okay. But beyond a couple of years, I think you have to say it's not worth continuing to pay for storage, or it's not worth to continue to have your space restricted by all this bulk. And you need to go in and start deciding, I am now the new owner of this because I like it and I want to use it in my house, or I don't want to use it in my house, therefore it needs to go somewhere else, whether that's to another family member or whether it needs to go out for donation. So that's it. That's how long I think you can reasonably wait before you start doing it. But after that, after a couple of years, you really need to get on it.
Yeah, if you're paying for storage, the simple answer could be when your resentment over what you're paying for storage becomes larger than your anxiety over the feelings that you're going to have to deal with to
Mm-hmm.
process it.
Mm-hmm.
When you've reached that kind of, when you've passed that emotional equilibrium and this stuff is now keeping it is more of a problem than dealing with it,
Right.
you
And the
know?
truth is, not all the stuff makes you cry.
Right,
Some of
right.
the stuff makes you cry. There'll
Most of
be
it is
things that you can deal with, and
Most of it probably won't, don't you think? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
what
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
that, wouldn't that be your experience helping people go through their parent stuff that most of it is pretty emotionally neutral?
Yeah, or even if even or just barely, just
Right.
barely
Yeah.
a problem because it's obvious what it is and it doesn't have any great association. But there are things in that pile that will have a strong emotional association with them. But that's not going to be 100%. And so there's always something that you can let go of that you can make decisions about without crumbling. I guess is the best way to say that.
Yeah. Um, a couple of comments. These are not going to be helpful to see because her parents have already left the stuff to her, but to other people who still have this in their future. Naomi says, all things being equal, it is less emotionally draining for us to help our parents downsize while they are still with us. Of course, that might
Mhm.
mean downloading the emotional stress onto the parents,
Well,
but
and
it's
as long
their
as you have a gentle
stuff.
hand, yeah, as long as
Yeah,
you have a gentle
yeah.
hand.
And
I did
Joyce,
that. I did that stuff with my mother.
yeah,
Every time I went out there to visit, we worked on some little area just for me to be helping her. But she was doing stuff without me too, with that same idea. Like she was getting things out of the house that she didn't care about or didn't think that we would care about, and it made a big difference when it was time to clean out her house.
and Joyce added, I wish my parents had let us help them downsize before it had to be done.
Mm-hmm. And
And
you may get resistance there, right? Like they don't want to
right,
face it.
yeah.
100%.
And Rowan said, for parents and spouses stuff, have a plan in advance so you can make decisions when you are not under stress. I've made a plan in case something happens to my housemate and find that is a comfort.
Oh, good. That's a good idea. Absolutely. Yeah, I have said to people that it's super helpful if you find it stressful thinking about managing it, even without including your parents, you can still look up resources, do some research about where you might want to be able to donate things there. You can look for who the junk haulers are in that area or how you want to manage having trash hauled away. There's research that can be done outside of your parents' knowledge about how to manage dealing with the contents after they're gone. And that can be, stress reducing for you to do it while your parents are there and you're not in crisis mode, right? It's much harder to do that research when the parents have passed and you're in grief and stressed out. And so it's easier to do it now while you're not upset, basically, and it can give you a little bit of relief.
Okay, one final note on there, and M said, my parents made the plans in advance, but then two of the siblings swooped in and snatched stuff that wasn't supposed to be theirs. I say, just remember that it's only stuff.
It's only stuff, and people get a little weird after when there's inheritance to be had. It gets a little strange for sure.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Bernie asked, how to declutter when you have a very limited amount of energy.
So this is we've talked about this before. If you have a limited amount of energy, then we need to figure out what your best time of day to do the work is, and maybe you need to do a little list of priorities that so you can be focused on the things that are most important for you to get done first, and do the things concentrating on the things that keep you safe and keep you functioning and healthy in the house. So those are really important to put at the top of the list. And then also see on your list of things to be done what can be hired out so that you use your energy on the most important stuff and let someone else do some of the work that you run out of steam before you can get to it. I think about that in terms of when I'm working with clients that have limited mobility, for instance, they're the ones that have to make the decisions about what stays and what goes. You're making your choices about what's important to keep, but then I'm the one, running things to the trash and running things to recycle and bagging up things to be donated. I'm doing the physical work of what happens after the decision's made. And so if you are focusing on what you bring to it, that's most important is your choices. You're deciding what needs to stay and what needs to go. And then after that, you can get other people to help with other parts of it. And,
Well,
limited energy means that you need to shrink down your contents to match the energy that you have to manage.
well, and I was going to emphasize that your third point about safety,
Mm.
do focus first on the things that keep the space safe and healthy for you. So, clear floors, make sure they're, not remove tripping hazards, remove anything that makes navigating through the space difficult, anything that complicates your mobility. Prioritize that, because you don't want anything to happen that makes matters worse. And then
Right.
you're dealing with limited energy and an injury, a tripping injury or something.
Yeah. And you
So,
want, the kitchen needs to be clean and, um, not toxic. Like the
right.
kitchen needs to be a healthy place for you to prepare food. The bathrooms need to be clean so that you stay healthy there. And so, those are the things that come to you boil down to the essentials to stay healthy and well in the space first.
Yeah. Susie Q asked, Gayle, do you like your new house? Congratulations on your purchase. Do you have a separate place for your bead store? And then she added, Ed, what spaces do you deal with at home? What are your hobbies? So I'll let you answer first.
So I do like my new home. Thank you very much. I actually, in this environment, because I have one great room, I'm not going to have all the bead stuff in that living room, in that one big room. There's a bead table there, and there's going to be some storage in the cabinets below, against the wall. But the big bead collection is actually going to be here in the office. I have a unit right here against the wall um, it's an old mail sorter unit, and it has a whole bunch of my bead boxes and trays in there. So the bulk of the stuff is going to be in the office, and my workspace is going to be in there where I can watch the TV, and where there's less, there's less stuff out for the person coming in the front door to just be confronted with right away. In the old house, the half of the living room that was the bead room was away from the hall, and it was back against the side, and so it wasn't as in your face. But in this layout of the house, it's going to have to be different. So yeah, that's what's going on with my bead room, and it's not unpacked yet. I'm not there yet.
And Susie Q asked what spaces I deal with at home and what are my hobbies. Well, my hobbies are cooking is one, and so I, deal with the kitchen, although I have a partner who is very generous about doing most of the cleaning in there. So
Mm,
usually it's just like he clears the decks, so I can just cook.
you can do your thing.
Yeah, and then and drawing. I think I've shown some of the things I've drawn to this group before. I have a very
Right.
I don't have a dedicated workspace really. I mean, here where I work, there's a credenza next to me that has most of my key drawing supplies.
Yeah,
It's
the
kind of
art
my
supplies.
dream that in our next space I can dedicate a little room to the art supplies and
It's always good
just
to have a studio, man.
arrange it a little more reachably. The hardest thing for me is with drawings, I'm usually working on dozens of different drawings at a time. I start things and set them aside, start another thing, set it
Yeah, you're
aside.
one of those multiple project guys,
I like to
right?
have a lot of projects going, and that's a little challenging in a very small space.
Mm-hmm.
My dream space would have a bunch of like vertical slots into
Yeah,
which
so
I
you can
could,
rack various in
yeah,
progress
where I could
projects.
and where I could keep each in
Ooh,
progress thing like mounted to a drawing board, to a foam core board,
Yes.
just cheap foam core.
Ooh, you know what we need
Yeah.
to get you? We need to
What's
get
that?
you a so the stuff that's for scrapbooking is 12 by 12 holes.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
we can get you a unit that that has those racks on the side, so you can slot things in, and the hole's bigger because it's designed for scrapbooking paper that they make
Gotcha.
in 12 by 12. So I'll look for that for you
Okay, but not
in the new
until
space.
not until the next,
Right,
not until I
right,
have a space that can accommodate it. Because
right. Next
right now I
house.
just they're sort of, stacked neatly together inside a container,
Right.
and I just have to dig a little bit when I need to find something.
Okay,
Um,
moving on.
an anonymous survey respondent asked us, "What is your current area of challenge, either an area or a discipline you need to revisit?"
Oh, calling me out. Okay. So email is my biggest struggle. As an organizer, my email should not be as big as it is. It is not. I do really well with the things in the physical world. I'm good with the things. I am not so good with the digital things. And so, yeah, my email is an embarrassment for me as a professional organizer. I have to say that. I mean, I do stuff to manage it, but I don't do it nearly fast enough or well enough for what it should be. I had one of my organizer friends, I was in Zoom and I was sharing my screen, and they saw my email box, and it showed like 4,000 unopened emails, and she was like, "Gayle, my heart is palpitating because you have that many unopened emails." I'm like, I know. So I realized it was an embarrassing moment for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have I struggle with email. I have a sort of a triage system to keep anything important from getting away, or that's the theory.
Right.
Um, and there's always too much, and I'm constantly unsubscribing, and it's still too much. And then for me, also financial paperwork. Like I'm good about clearing the mail and throwing away loads. Most of the mail just goes away the minute it comes in, because I'm keeping most almost all records digitally. But there is stuff like, I don't necessarily start out with a digital. The stuff that doesn't start out digitally is a problem. Like when I get an invoice or something from a client that's paper, the,
Yeah.
the few who still do that kind of thing, I mean, an invoice or a statement, things like that. I always struggle with that because
Right. Because ew.
ew, yeah, because it's really mostly because it's such boring, tedious, and unpleasant work that
Right.
I
Yeah.
would rather not.
You would think that as a former CPA that I would be more amenable to doing my own financial paperwork. And yet it's sort of like I have PTSD. And so I avoid it like the plague. I can still get it done, but oh, I do not enjoy it. Moving on. Let's go to the next
Okay,
thing.
no, we won't talk about that unpleasant topic any longer than
Right.
we need to. Peggy asked, "What thing were you happiest to be able to declutter, either personally or for a client?"
Oh, I have a perfect story for this. I still remember a client who took 18 months of working with me, basically every week or every other week, before she let me touch the mail, like literally touch it. I would try to go towards it and she would start panicking. So I couldn't touch it for a year and a half. Then it took another 3 years for her to not need to take an extra anxiety medication before we could start on the mail. Like I would say, "Okay, are you ready to do the mail?" And she'd be like, "Okay, let me go take," like she would have to go take another med before she could sit down and we could start talking, dealing with the mail. So now we're, 4.5 years in. So when she said to me one day, "Gayle, when you open the mail every day and deal with it, it really doesn't accumulate." I almost passed out. I felt like I had won the biggest prize. It took 5 years for that mental shift from supreme anxiety to understanding what was needed to be done. And it took 5 years for that to happen. And it was a really big win for me and for her both. I just felt like that was such a great satisfaction because I didn't see it coming. I didn't anticipate that she had changed about it at all. And she just piped up one day and threw that out at me, and I almost fell over. Just couldn't believe it. And I will remember that moment forever when she said that to me. It was a big, big win for both of us.
I'm going to share a comment from Ginger going back to email, I'm
Uh,
afraid. But Ginger
okay.
says, I finally conquered email. I created morning coffee routine where I sit with coffee and clear the daily email. And she says, clear check. She has a bunch of, she has a checklist, clear messages, voicemail, call histories, and FaceTime, clear photos, iPad 75. She put 0V. I'm not sure what that means. iPhone 48 1V. I'm not sure
Hmm.
what her codes mean. She'll clarify
Hmm.
for us, I'm sure. And then she checks off clear email, ours, mine, mom, dad. So she's dealing with email for both
Oh, that's a lot.
parents who've passed
Mm.
away.
Hmm.
Oh, V is videos. Oh,
Oh,
zero
okay.
videos, iPhone 1 video.
Okay.
That's great. She's staying on top of all of her digital incoming.
She's on it.
She sets a tough standard.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I would fail that standard every time.
Well, and with email particularly, I think it becomes discouraging because there's so much junk. There's so much that is just well,
It's
junk and
unnecessary in the storm.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
that's all I'll
next
say about
one.
that.
Yep.
Um, there we are. Cheryl asked, uh, Cheryl said, my question is, any advice on keeping from recluttering? What kind of self-talk can I have when I'm heading to the store?
So you should watch or listen to the September 6th episode, the one that just went by not too long ago. It was called Clutter Redux: How to Shift the Habits That Lead to Recluttering. If you haven't already done so, you can go catch up on that, because we talked all about how to keep clutter from coming back into spaces that have already been decluttered. You wanted some ideas about self-talk, so we came up with a few examples there as well. Like when you're going to the store, telling yourself, I'm going to buy what I need, not whatever catches my eye. Or if I want to buy it, I need to know where it's going to be stored and how it's going to be used in the next 6 weeks before I can buy it. I don't need multiples of everything. One is enough, particularly if you live alone. Just because it's cute doesn't mean I have to take it home. That's a good one. Those of us that find everything cute end up taking things home just because for the moment they captured our attention. I can just touch things and rifle through things as if it's an in-person magazine. And after I admire them, I can flip the page over and look at the next set of items. So you can, in the store, as you're looking at stuff, you can tell yourself, I can touch them and rifle through them and pretend like I'm messing with a magazine. I'm flipping pages in a magazine. And after I admire how cute they are, I can just turn the page and move on to the next thing, which is you can walk away from those items after you've admired them and leave them behind. I can look for fun without buying any of the things that I think are cute, right? It's fine to look and have looking at all the cool stuff in the store is fun, and you don't have to buy it all. And the fact that I think it's cool looking isn't a big enough reason to buy it. And you need to remember that. Just because it's cool looking is not a good enough reason to buy it. There needs to be more impetus for you to have it than that. And particularly if you find all kinds of things interesting and pretty and cute and fascinating and attention grabbing, your possibility of things to buy is a much larger swath. So you need to filter it down from, I think that's cool, therefore it goes in the cart, to I think that's cool, I enjoyed looking at it, and now I can walk away from it.
Naomi
There.
suggests cultivate the attitude that the store is like a museum or art gallery.
Oh,
You can admire the beautiful things, but they belong in the museum.
exactly. That's a great metaphor. I like it. Thank you. That's a great way to think of it. You're just walking through the museum and they're not going to let you take it home. Even though they're trying really, really hard.
The other thought I had was, if shopping is your temptation, if shopping is your weak spot, what what are some alternative activities that you could substitute? Could you treat yourself take yourself out with something to read and go sit in a coffee shop and
Hmm.
enjoy your book with a coffee, or maybe do something fun for yourself when you shop without buying. Like if you leave all the stores you visited empty-handed, then you get you get a treat.
You get to go for ice cream.
Yeah, now that's not really a self-talk idea. That's more of a
Right.
alternative motivation idea.
Right, right, right. That's so funny. Well, it's almost one, buddy, so we should move on to the tittle.
Okay, let's talk about next week.
Okay.
We're going to be back next Tuesday, which is October 1st.
Woohoo.
Since next week's show will be on October 1st, we're about to embark on the season of food, shopping, celebration, and chaos that runs from now until the new year. This year, why not plan your holiday season to include only your most beloved treats and traditions? Next week, we're going to offer suggestions to streamline the season for yourself and your loved ones with simpler, more relaxing, less cluttered approaches to holiday preparations. Join us on October 1st for Simplify, Relax, and Enjoy Decluttering Your 2024 Holiday Season. Gayle, why don't you give us the tittle?
Okay, this week's tittle is Self-Talk for Living with Less. This week's assignment is to craft some positive self-talk to help you manage a part of your life that's vulnerable to clutter. Identify a space, a function, or an aspect of your home or life that's prone to becoming a collection or a source of clutter. For example, Cheryl, who asked today's question about self-talk to prepare for shopping, make a connection between shopping behavior and a tendency to reclutter. Reflect on the habits, routines, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, etc., that make this part of your life particularly susceptible to clutter. Jot down a few affirmations or positive statements to express how you prefer to respond or behave with respect to this area of your life. For example, Cheryl might say, just because it's cute doesn't mean I need to bring it home from the store. That was a good one. Practice repeating your affirmations or statements several times throughout the week, especially if you find yourself in circumstances that trigger your tendency to accumulate clutter. Remember to say them when you see yourself adding clutter to your space as a way to interrupt the impulse to accumulate more. We're hoping that will be helpful. Do some affirmations and come back and tell us what you wrote, and we'll be happy to hear about them.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. I appreciate your continued interest in my house, and I will keep telling you about it as you ask questions. I am not unpacked yet. I'm just saying there's more to be done. All right. Thanks for coming.
Did you get through all the unlabeled boxes at least?
No.
Oh my goodness.
I have not gotten to the unlabeled
my
one yet.
Curiosity would have driven me to those pretty early on, I think.
Yeah, one of them was I did open one, and it was things that were in basically the utility closet that had brooms and nails and picture hangers and light bulbs, that kind of stuff. That was all in a box together. So somebody packed that without labeling it. That was mystery box number 1.
All right.
There's more, though. We have more to go. All right. Great to see you guys. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.